Rounding up some of the best CPU coolers that we've tested recently. So this year, we overhauled our CPU cooler testing methodologies to move to AM5, testing the 9800X3D and the 9950X3D primarily for thermal results. And this roundup includes the best liquid and air coolers that we've tested with this new methodology that we've deployed. We haven't done all of them yet, obviously. There's a lot of coolers out there, but we have enough to get a series going and return to our best of series for the end of the year, which is my favorite series to work on every year because it's the actually good things in computer hardware. We just did one of these for best cases. So that video is on the channel already. It goes over the best cases of 2025. And actually the cases and the coolers in this one have had an overall positive year. And that is in spite of the entire rest of the industry's best efforts, like with RAM and CPUs and GPUs. But look, at least the things that are made out of basically just metal and fans are still good. They're still advancing there, so that's nice to see. The roundup today will include results from our AM5 platform primarily. We have 157 watt and 276 watt heat loads for those, and that includes noise-normalized and 100% fan speed tests. This is the first time you're seeing any of that specific data. We haven't shown it yet, so it's kind of a new start for us for cooler testing. That means we're going to slowly append to this data set over time, so you're going to see a lot more added, but we've got a good starting point here. The categories this year include best overall, best value, best noise-normalized for air coolers and for liquid coolers separately, and then the best out of the box thermals, of course, which is just flat out performance at 100%. Let's get into it. Before that, this video is brought to you by Haven and their new BF360 Flow case. The Haven BF360 Flow is a high airflow case with a focus on performance, with the model that includes fans using two 180mm front intake fans at 40mm thick in combination with a 120mm rear exhaust fan. In our previous testing of the case, we found its thermal performance to be among the best performers on our charts. The BF360 uses a scooped shroud near the GPU that our smoke testing found deflects the air into the leftmost GPU fan for more targeted GPU intake. It also has marked cable management channels, rubber grommets on most metal contact points, and what we think is overall good build quality. Learn more about the Haven BF360 Flow at the link in the description below. All right, so to set the expectations for this content, as always, the year-end roundups for the best of series mostly are a flyover. We do the highlights of some of the top coolers that we've tested for the year in different categories, but we're not going into nearly as much depth as we go into for individual reviews. So where they exist, we'll link the individual reviews we've done below. And if we don't have an individual review for a part like the FX360 or the Tryx Panorama cooler, then you'll be able to see more on those as we continue to publish reviews in the coming months. For this roundup, the new data is not comparable to the old. For example, with the noise levels, we've moved to the hemianechoic chamber for new data, so totally different process. You can't compare the charts that way. As usual, there are hundreds of coolers out there, and a lot of them are pretty good. We can't test them all. We can only really speak to the ones that we've tested this year and have had hands-on experience with, so that's what we're gonna be looking at today. We have a good overall cross-section. If you don't see exactly what you're looking for, there's a ton of other reviews out there you can check out, or of course check back as we continue to add more. Let's get into the best coolers of 2025. The first award is for the best overall CPU cooler for our 2025 testing. This award is given based on the total overall thermal performance, the acoustic performance, build quality, mechanical design, and most importantly, value. Simply performing the best, but being a $300 liquid cooler isn't going to cut it for best overall. We want it to be affordable for what you're getting, while also being compatible with most PC builds. This year, we're giving best overall to the Sudokoo SK700 series, and this is actually the first time, sort of, that this brand is appearing in our charts. The runner-up award goes to the ID-Cooling A720, which won last year for this category. The best overall category is always given to a cooler that won another category in the same awards, and in this case, the SK700V won our Best Mechanical Design award this year as well. As you'll hear in a few moments for that category, Sudokoo is deeply familiar for its cooling roots, and its deep cooling capabilities aren't entirely unique to the new brand. The SK700V earns the best overall rank for a combination of its high build quality and its thermal performance. At 100% fan speeds for the 9800X3D workload that we have in our AM5 bench, the cooler measured at 31.9 dBA while landing at 60.9 degrees Celsius for T-die. That has it behind the A720 runner-up by just a couple degrees, but with what we think is significantly higher build quality at the same price, and more importantly, better case compatibility due to its smaller stature and shorter 120mm fan. Even still, the A720 gets a runner-up award for best overall, maintaining some of its status from its victory last year in this category, simply for being the best, not $150 NHD15G2 air cooler on the chart. Maybe that's a new award we can introduce next year. The A720 is technically better than the SK700 series in thermals, but costs about the same right now, and we do think its overall build quality is comparatively lower while also running louder in full fan speed tests, but with similar performance. That Sudokoo is achieving what it is while only running a single fan is impressive. And a lot of that comes down to the more densely packed fin stack and its 7 6mm heat pipes through the cold plate. The inclusion of the contact plate is also beneficial, but we'll save that for the best mechanical design section to get into. In our 9800 XVD 157 watt heat load at 25 dBA noise normalized, the SK700V landed at 64.1 degrees over ambient, so about 2 degrees warmer than the A720 Black. For this reason, the A720 Black still gets acknowledgement and runner-up spot. But best overall is more than just cooling, and Sudokoo takes it with all of that. We're impressed with its ease of installation features, cleanliness of design, wide case and RAM compatibility, and thermal performance. We would be impressed with it being the first attempt at a cooler for a new company, but Sudokoo has done well here. The next award is simple, and one of the most important. This is for Best Noise-Normalized Thermals, which is a purely objective measurement that ignores all other factors beyond the thermal performance, given a set target of the cooler's volume, so to speak. For this, we test the cooler in our hemi-anechoic chamber at a 1 meter distance, front on, and adjust the cooler fan speeds until we hit a noise target of 25 dBA. We ignore all other factors, including price. So sort of the opposite of the last one, where price was the only consideration. Previously, this testing was done in a normal room instead of the chamber, so this is a big improvement for our accuracy this year and allows us a lot more granularity, especially factoring in the increase in coolers with VRM fans in the blocks, because those are easier to pick up in the chamber. We're giving this to 2 coolers, one for air and one for liquid. The first is for liquid. The best noise-normalized thermals on liquid goes to the updated Tryx Panorama 360. In our brand new noise-normalized benchmarking on the 9800 XVD with a 157 watt heat load, the updated Tryx Panorama performed the best. But there's a caveat here with dual CCD CPUs that we'll get to. The result on this single CCD, 9800 XVD, was 53.6 degrees Celsius over ambient for average T-die temperature, slightly improving on the original Tryx Panorama's result of 54 degrees and landing over 1 degree cooler than the Liquid Freezer series at its best. In our new testing, because the acoustic chamber allows more accuracy than our older room measurements, the Liquid Freezer 2 and Liquid Freezer 3 360s are often close by in noise-normalized results, and that's because of the impact to noise from the VRM fan. The VRM fan doesn't affect CPU temperatures, but it definitely affects the noise level, and so they sometimes exchange places depending on this. In our original review of the Liquid Freezer 3, we also noticed that its pump is relatively loud, and reducing it to 70% allowed us to maintain higher fan speeds, which significantly improved its noise-normalized results. So we're seeing some of that here, but neither of these is the winner this year, so it doesn't really matter. The Panorama, or the updated one, really does well here. It kind of surprised us, because this is the first time we've worked on the Tryx coolers, and they're brand new to it still. One of the worst 360s we tested was the Cooler Master Master Liquid 360L, which we assume stands for liquid, Core ARGB. So in full, it's the Cooler Master Master Liquid 360 Liquid Core ARGB, which is a $60 to $70 cooler, presumably with at least half of that going towards the cost of ink to print all those letters on the box. Their newer Atmos is better. The Thermalright Frozen Prism 360 is cheaper than Cooler Master at $55, and it outdoes the air coolers, but not much else, and this year the FX360 gave it a run for its money. With the 9950X3D at 276 watts and noise normalized, the Panorama consistently performed slightly comparatively worse in the hierarchy than its results with the 9800X3D. This is related to the dual CCDs. Across 3 different test mounts that we did, its performance was consistent, but just slightly worse than with a single CCD, strictly in terms of how it ended up averaging in the hierarchy. So breaking out both CCD results, the updated Panorama had some of the best CCD1 results, but performed notably worse on CCD2. Both results are fine, but it's just that the average works out to being worse. The T-die result isn't a clean average of just these 2 numbers, which would be 59.3 degrees, but is instead pulling from the hardware info T-die column. This comes down to pressure distribution and contact across the second CCD specifically. Tryx's Panorama cooler is best known for its namesake 6.5-inch visible area, 60 Hz, 2240 by 1080 AMOLED screen, which wraps the cooler on one edge and can be used to play videos or display stats. We originally showed these at Computex when Tryx first debuted it a couple years back, but the company has been slowly iterating on the design since then. The display can also be used in a split-screen mode for two functionally independent panels. This whole assembly makes the CPU block component tall and boxy at 118 by 92 by 92 millimeters, although the actual cooling block itself is a more normal height. Removing the display reveals a 60mm VRM fan on top of the block. Air primarily escapes one side of the fan through ventilated ports on the display block, although it's also able to exit out and down at least a little bit on two other sides. Externally, the radiator is 30mm thick, but the finned area depth is reduced by about 9 to 12mm from that. That said, the extra spacing can help with reduced hub dead zones on the side with the fans mounted to it. Tryx is buying from Asetek for its supplier, making it one of Asetek's only recent relevant victories in the consumer space in years. The cooler is about $250 to $300, making it one of the more expensive ones on the market, and you're definitely paying for that display. The next award is for Best Noise-Normalized Thermals with an air cooler instead. The other 9800X3D noise-normalized winner was the Noctua NHD15G2, which managed to lead the A720 from ID-Cooling and the Darkrock Pro 5 from Be Quiet by 1 to 2 degrees. The Royal Praetor from Thermalright didn't do as well as we'd hoped. It was fine, but when noise normalized, it's simply limited in performance due to its fans running on the louder side, in combination with the lower speed impacting the 130mm fan more heavily. Since noise is a factor for tuning for this result, a cooler with louder than necessary fans will be disadvantaged in it. It does better than the Peerless Assassin in full speed testing, but it doesn't do better than it here. But it also doesn't win, so it doesn't matter. In the 9950X3D noise-normalized thermal testing, the NHD15G2 held a 69.4 degree average over ambient, putting it at about 90 degrees once accounting for ambient. That's borderline. It was the only air cooler in our test suite so far that was capable of safely completing this test without throttling or hitting a thermal trip. The NHD15G2 LBC is the low base convexity model, not the Snoop Dogg model, which performs best on AMD when compared to Noctua's HBC and standard models. We demonstrated these differences in our original NHD15G2 review, including 3D laser scans of the NHD15G2 base plates with multipliers to illustrate the differences in the curvature. It was pretty cool. You should check out that review if you haven't seen it. We also took pressure maps of the D15G2, illustrating the areas of highest contact and mounting pressure under the various cold plates. Noctua's cooler is expensive. Repeatedly, and on 3 platforms we've tested, it's had competitors within a few degrees of its performance that are around or over $100 cheaper, and that's without even considering liquid coolers as an option. It isn't good value, that much is clear. If you want the best thermal performance, you can get that with a liquid cooler, and if you want competitive thermal performance, you can get that with a cheaper air cooler. There are similarly performing coolers for far cheaper in both camps. Noctua gets credit, though, for its engineering, because by the performance and by the efforts invested into maximizing the cold plate and the fans, the company has successfully iterated and advanced its performance. The cooler is well built, and it's performed well on our testing. We said this category ignores all other factors, including price, and for that reason, Noctua's NHD15G2 is simply the best for noise-normalized thermals on an air cooler for our new test suite. The next award is for the best budget CPU coolers. We're giving these out in the liquid and air categories as well. For this award, a cooler needs to be as cheap as possible while still offering at least acceptable performance. This is for the price conscious, and so we ignore almost all features aside from price and performance. For liquid, we're giving it to the FX360 Pro. For air, it's the $15.59 Assassin Spirit V2. The $50 ID-Cooling FX360 Pro takes it this year for liquid, dethroning the Thermalright Frozen Prism 360 of the past. These two companies have been locked in a battle over cheapest coolers since Deepcool was evicted from the US market. Starting with the ID-Cooling FX360 Pro, in our noise-normalized 9800X3D charts, it managed to at least run around the level of other 360 liquid coolers we tested. The ID-Cooling FX360 Pro is $52 currently, so it's cheap. In fact, everything about it is cheap. The CPU block feels cheap and plasticky, the fans feel cheap and plasticky, the stickers on the fans feel cheap, the unsleeved cables are cheap, the simple mounting hardware and the tubes are cheap, even their website is cheap with its expired SSL certificate. That's probably why it's $52. But if you're looking for cooling on a budget and don't really care about the rest and don't feel a need to visit their website and enter information, then this can get the job done. The FX360 Pro is all black and without LEDs, the model we tested, also contributing to the price. As a positive, despite the cheap-feeling pump block, they've managed to get it to at least look okay in dim lighting in a case. The false brushed aluminum-style plastic cap comes across okay visually. If you're looking for a blackout build on the cheap, this might be a good fit. The cooler outperformed the Frozen Prism while managing to drop the price a few dollars lower, landing ID-Cooling in the winning spot for the best budget cooler this year. Now the caveat, liquid coolers have another angle to consider, which is longevity. We've covered a lot of liquid coolers over the years that gunked up or had other issues. We can't speak to the FX360's longevity since we haven't had it that long. Currently, we have no immediate reason to suspect it would go bad, so to speak, other than just the fact that such low pricing always makes us a little bit cautious when we're recommending things to thousands of people. So just a note from us that we haven't endurance tested this, but we also have no reason to suspect it would gunk up. As for the air category of best budget, it's the Assassin Spirit V2 from Thermalright. We haven't rerun these on our new charts, but we have tested them in the past on a few CPUs. Like the FX360 Pro, the Spirit V2 looks and feels cheap in just about every way, mostly because it is. But this is the best budget category. It's $15.59 on Amazon right now, and you know when you need to charge 59 cents for something, you're definitely pushing the limits of margin. The cooler can't handle higher power CPUs, but for something like a 65-watt part especially, it's definitely capable. Even in our 123-watt 3800X testing we did years ago, it was capable of keeping that CPU at reasonable temperatures while on reduced fan speeds. The Spirit V2 has 4 6mm heat pipes with direct contact for the base and a simple 2-point mount. The fan maxes out at 1500 RPM and also is a simple, cheaper solution without any frills or special engineering. The single tower cooler gets its job done for about $16 though. Sorry, $15.59. So if you need something cheap for a lower power CPU or just to bridge the gap, or maybe to get an older system up and running, this would work. There are other similarly cheap CPU coolers out there. We haven't tested any recently, but in the past we've tested them as low as it was either $3 or $7. Although once you start getting that low, it tends to have problems on modern CPUs. Our next award is for Best Out-of-the-Box Thermals, a GN classic. This is a simple award, and it's given for the cooler that has the best performance regardless of acoustics. This means that we just set the cooler fans to max speed and run it as loud as it wants to run. These are often different winners from Noise-Normalized just because some coolers run crazy fast fans. For this though, the best out-of-the-box thermals at full fan speeds with liquid goes to the Tryx Panorama again. Even when running full speed, it's a chart topper by about 1 full degree Celsius, leading the Kraken and the Corsair coolers in the 9800X3D chart. This was at 42.5 dBA, so it's less acoustically efficient than the Kraken Elite when at max speeds. The Corsair Titan is about the same noise level and with an error of the Panorama. The Master Liquid Atmos 2 is quieter at max speed, but also warmer for CPU temperature. For air coolers on this chart, the winner would be the A720, tied with the NHD15G2 and with an error. The A720 has an advantage in its louder noise level than the NHD15G2, allowing it to brute force its way to an identical temperature result, despite, of course, being louder. Our 9950X3D chart at full speed also goes to the Panorama at 53.8 degrees above ambient. The Nautilus and the Titan are close behind, as is the Liquid Freezer series. Cooling performance at full speed mostly comes down to how loud companies want to run their fans, which has to do directly with that speed. Many of these entries are lower than winners of this category in years distant past. They're still loud at full speed, but not as loud as something like the old EVGA CLC series and its odd fan choices at the time. So again, for this one, they go to the Panorama for liquid and the A720 for air. Both links below. Our next award is for Best Mechanical Design. Years past have seen this awarded to the Noctua NHD15G2 for its impressive focus on mounting hardware and tuning to the physical aspects of the cooler. The Deepcool Assassin 4 for its ease of use and installation features, and the NHP1 for its excellence in passive cooling. This year, maybe fittingly with the Assassin's prior victory, we're giving the award to the Sudokoo SK700 series for its high build quality and fine-tuned mounting hardware kit. Interestingly, this is an AM5 only cooler, which is fine because Intel basically doesn't exist on the consumer market right now. The Sudokoo cooler may look familiar, and that's a special report story for another time for us. And yes, we do have the full details, we're just waiting on a few things, but the short of it is that if you've wanted a US Entity List compliant deep cool cooler, there are options available. The Sudokoo SK700 is built of sturdy hardware that feels familiar to the old Assassin series we recommended for its build quality previously, for maybe visually obvious reasons. The cooler uses an ILM replacement plate that secures directly to the CPU and helps clamp it down. This is like the Intel contact plates we've tested in the past, and this one works well. When replacing the ILM, the plate is bolted down with 8 screws into the AMD backplate. We also noticed various offset mounting options, maybe for future deep Sudokoo CPU coolers or some of their other products that we haven't tested yet. RAM clearance is effectively infinite, and not only because people can't buy RAM at 500% higher prices than a month ago, so they don't put any in the slots. The front fan adjusts vertically on a set of rails that are cleverly integrated into the sides of the tower itself. Plastic ridges nest with a metal frame that's mounted to the fan, allowing easy adjustability without the metal clips that we often encounter, while also closing in the cooler to force air through in and out the backside. Depending on A/B testing, this could work better or worse for cooling, depending on the static pressure performance of the fan. The rails are cleverly done in a way that they could be swapped to any fan you wanted, as long as it fits the general size of the cooler, resolving issues of CPU cooler fan rail systems in the past that required custom one-off fans. This means that in the event of fan failure or just wanting to swap, you could migrate the rails to any fan that mount cleanly to the cooler. Everything about the cooler has some heft to it, largely thanks to its use of 7 6mm heat pipes embedded in a nickel-plated copper cold plate at the base and a relatively high fin density of the heatsink. The top of the cooler uses a pin-to-pad solution to drive power into the digital display plate, which is a clean way to execute the power delivery and makes it easy to take on and off as needed. There are 2 large access holes through the top center, which is another nice touch, for accessing the mounting hardware with a long driver that's included. Sudokoo even labels this to make it obvious, which is just a nice touch for novice builders. All the plastic is removable as well, with a few screws in the top of the frame if you needed to do any kind of dust cleaning maintenance to it, and we like that the SK700 manages to pull together ease of installation features without making anything needlessly proprietary, which is something we've seen a lot of. Our thermal testing of the Noise-Normalized 9800X3D benchmarks had it in the middle of the air coolers we've tested, behind the dual fan Peerless Assassin while running only one fan, and not that far away from it, which is a great rank overall. On Amazon, the cooler is currently $60 to $70 depending on SKU, making it competitive with last year's best overall winner, the ID-Cooling A720. For all these reasons, the Sudokoo SK700 gets our Best Mechanical Design Award. All right, so that's it for this roundup. It's fun as always. We have a lot more of these coming up because the testing methodology is all fully deployed now for AM5. I'm excited about it. One, it's a very stable platform to work on, which is awesome. It's really easy to dial in and kind of lock the numbers where we want them for testing purposes. And we're looking at the CPU that we really recommend the most, which is the 9800X3D for gaming use cases. And then, for a higher wattage part, we've got the 9950X3D at 276 watts. So it's looking pretty good for comparisons. And keep an eye out as we continue to benchmark coolers. Of course, you can always leave your requests for coolers for us to look at in comments throughout the videos. But in the case of coolers and computer cases, they don't really go bad. They're basically just metal and sometimes fans, normally fans. And so for that reason, we see a lot of these kind of make repeat visits for a couple years in a row. We've seen that again this year. Best Cases is online now on our channel. So if you want to check out the best cases of 2025, there's a lot of really good, innovative cases this year. We did a ton of reviews on them, all new methodology that we debuted end of last year, I think, or beginning of last year. And it's a pretty good list. There's actually really, it's nice. Like, it's actually nice to see 2 parts of the industry that are doing things other than just innovating how to fuck over the consumer, which is what we've seen in memory and GPUs earlier this year. And CPUs, they've been going okay, but Intel's not really present, so kind of worried about the competition there. Anyway, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Go to the store, as always, to help us out on store.gamersnexus.net, or you can go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to throw a few bucks our way for our in-depth testing and to subscribe for more. We'll see you all next time.